Ukraine's impossible strike on North Korea. August 28, 2025, 4:10 a.m. The peaceful skies above Kyiv, North Korea, erupted. 100 suicide drones, each assembled from smuggled parts and costing less than $300 apiece, roared into the night. Their mission: wipe out one of North Korea's most secure military bases, home to 60 ballistic missiles, 90,000 gallons of jet fuel, 12,000 artillery shells, and supplies for 10,000 troops. Could such fragile machines, built from plywood, fiberglass, and salvaged electronics, really breach the steel shield of Pyongyang's war machine? The world would know in minutes. Fireballs lit the horizon as alarms wailed across the compound. Why was Ukraine able to sneak weapons through checkpoints? Would this audacious plan succeed? And how would North Korea react? Let's uncover the truth. August 12, 2025, 2:45 a.m. On the remote industrial outskirts of Dandong, a Chinese border city less than 20 miles from North Korea, Ukraine launched one of its most audacious covert operations. For nearly a month, Ukrainian intelligence officers had mapped every detail of a plan bordering on suicidal. Strike a fortified North Korean base with 100 suicide UAVs, an arsenal small in size but carrying the destructive potential of a missile strike. The logistics were staggering. Over 10 to 12 tons of UAV components, engines, wings, guidance systems, and explosive payloads had to be smuggled through layers of checkpoints. Rather than risk detection with complete weapons, the Ukrainians disguised the parts as 420 separate shipments, each labeled as agricultural equipment or construction supplies. Piece by piece, these boxes crossed borders under the noses of inspectors who never suspected they were letting through an air fleet in disguise. By August 27th, the convoy of crates reached a derelict warehouse hidden in a pine forest just 11 miles from the Korean frontier. Here, a team of 47 Ukrainian engineers and technicians worked in shifts around the clock. In just 15 days, they assembled 100 fully operational UAVs, each armed with a 20-kilogram explosive charge. Together, these drones represented a strike package worth less than $3 million in materials, but potentially capable of causing hundreds of millions in damage. Yet the plan almost unraveled. On the 7th night of assembly, August 20th, 2025, 11:37 p.m., 2 North Korean border guards wandered close to the compound. A faint whine from a test motor escaped into the darkness. The guards froze, sweeping their flashlights across the perimeter. Inside, the Ukrainians held their breath. Discovery would mean execution on the spot and the obliteration of the mission. In a split-second decision, the lead engineer yanked the main power breaker, plunging the warehouse into silence. After a tense 90 seconds, the guards muttered, shrugged, and returned to their post. The crisis had passed. The drones would fly. The mission had survived by seconds. From that moment, everyone knew there was no room for another mistake. Do you think there are fatal mistakes in war? Tell me in the comments. August 28th, 2025, 4:10 a.m. The warehouse lights in the pine forest went dark for the last time. Doors opened, and one by one the first wave of Ukrainian UAVs slid silently into the night. Their mission was not to destroy, but to blind. 10 specially modified drones, each carrying a compact electromagnetic jamming pod designed by Ukraine's top defense engineers, rose into the sky. Flying just 200 feet above the ground and hugging the terrain, they crossed into North Korean airspace at exactly 4:26 a.m. Their flight paths were precise, programmed to circle the perimeter radars for maximum effect. 29 a.m. The pods activated. An invisible storm of electronic noise erupted, flooding the early warning radars stationed near Sinuiju and Kyiv. For 15 minutes, one of the most fortified defense networks in East Asia went blind. North Korean operators panicked. Surveillance screens showed only static. Tracking systems screamed with false alarms. Searchlights swept the sky at random, but there was nothing to see. "Targets lost! All signals jammed!" one officer shouted, pounding the console. In the command bunker, chaos spread as officers debated whether this was equipment failure or an act of war. Inside the Ukrainian control station 11 miles from the border, commanders watched in silence. The countdown clock ticked mercilessly. 0:14:52, 0:02:35, 0:14. Every second mattered. Then came the signal from Kyiv. A message from Lieutenant General Dmytro Havilenko, the architect of the mission. In war, the first strike belongs not to those with the most missiles, but to those who can blind the enemy before he even knows he's under attack. Today, gentlemen, history favors the bold. P1 AM. The remaining UAVs stirred to life. Motors ignited, wings unfolded, and dozens of dark silhouettes rose above the forest canopy. They waited only for the jammers to finish their deadly dance. Once the enemy's eyes were fully shut, the true storm would begin. Ukraine had less than 900 seconds to unleash its fury. Before we get into the real battle, let me know where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. August 28th, 2025, 4:32 AM. The second wave roared into action. 40 Ukrainian suicide UAVs lifted into the night sky, their engines buzzing like a swarm of mechanical hornets. Each carried a 20-kilogram shaped charge warhead, engineered to punch through reinforced bunkers and radar arrays. Unlike the jamming drones, these were killers, programmed for precision. Their first targets, North Korea's air defense systems, the KN-06 Red Banner surface-to-air missile batteries, mobile radar trucks, and stationary Ukraine's answer to North Korea's doctrine of layered defense had arrived, 35 AM. The swarm struck. The first 6 UAVs dove into a radar dome west of Sinuiju, obliterating it in a blinding fireball. Seconds later, 8 more slammed into missile launchers, detonating with enough force to flip steel tubes like matchsticks. Shockwaves rippled across the base, tearing through barracks and igniting fuel trucks. North Korea's gunners scrambled to respond. Anti-aircraft fire ripped into the sky, over 1,200 rounds in the first 2 minutes, but they were shooting blind. The jammers were still active, and the UAV's flight paths were erratic, twisting in impossible arcs designed to confuse targeting systems. Operators locked onto phantom signals, firing at empty skies while the real drones descended on them like executioners. 41 AM. 26 air defense positions annihilated. Explosions shook the ground with the force of 5 tons of TNT. Surveillance cameras caught missile silos blooming into towers of flame, their warheads cooking off in a chain reaction. A single strike on an ammunition depot triggered a secondary blast equivalent to 40,000 artillery shells detonating at once, flattening everything within a half-mile radius. The scale of destruction was staggering. In less than 10 minutes, North Korea's frontline air defense network, valued at over $750 million, was reduced to twisted steel and burning craters. From their hidden command center, Ukrainian officers exchanged silent glances. The impossible had been achieved. The enemy's shield, once thought impenetrable, now lay in ruins. But there was no time to celebrate. The clock was still ticking on the radar blackout. Ukraine had just 7 minutes left to deliver the next blow, the strike that would shatter North Korea's war machine from within. Are you there? Don't leave yet. Here's the final blow. August 2nd, 2025, 4:44 AM. With North Korea's air defense grid in ruins, the third wave of Ukraine's suicide UAVs surged forward. 30 drones, programmed for the most devastating task of all, destroying the lifeblood of the enemy's war machine. Their targets were not soldiers or radar systems, but the warehouses and fuel reserves hidden deep inside the Kyiv military district. Intelligence pinpointed 5 high-value facilities, 2 aviation fuel depots, a missile storage hangar, an ammunition stockpile, and a fortified warehouse holding emergency rations. Destroying these nodes would starve North Korea's military of firepower, fuel, and food in a single strike. 4:46 AM. The first drone crashed through the roof of a fuel depot. The impact ignited 90,000 gallons of aviation fuel at once, lighting up the sky like a false dawn. The shockwave shook residential areas 10 kilometers away. Nearby military buildings collapsed. Seconds later, 7 more UAVs dove into the missile storage hangar. Inside were an estimated 60 short-range ballistic missiles awaiting deployment. The detonation set off a catastrophic chain reaction. Missiles cooked off one by one, streaking uncontrolled into the sky before exploding mid-air. Observers counted 23 secondary detonations in just a few moments. Each blast echoed like an earthquake, 51 a.m. The swarm turned on the ammunition stockpile. When the first UAV struck, the result was apocalyptic. Over 12,000 artillery shells detonated simultaneously, producing a blast equal to 15 tons of TNT. The ground convulsed as entire sections of the base vanished beneath a mushrooming column of smoke and fire. The final UAVs targeted the ration warehouse, a calculated psychological blow. Explosives tore through walls stacked with grain, rice, and preserved food. Supplies meant to feed 10,000 soldiers for 3 months vanished in an instant, leaving survivors with nothing but ash and hunger. North Korean command centers dissolved into chaos. Communications flooded with conflicting reports. Fuel depots destroyed, missiles lost, casualties unknown. Officers screamed for anti-aircraft coverage, but the guns had already been silenced. Amid the flames, soldiers ran in every direction, some abandoning their posts entirely, 56 a.m. Less than 15 minutes since the wave began, Kyiv base had been gutted. What once housed billions of dollars in strategic reserves now smoldered as twisted steel and burning craters. Ukraine had not just pierced the shield, it had struck at the heart of North Korea's ability to wage war, 58 a.m. The final wave took flight. 20 suicide UAVs remained, and their mission was merciless: sweep the battlefield clean. Unlike the earlier waves, these drones were agile, fitted with micro-turbines that let them pivot in mid-air like hunting birds. Their orders were simple: hunt down what survived, 3:01 a.m. The drones descended on the outskirts of the Kyiv base. Anti-aircraft crews scrambling into backup positions were struck before they could fire a shot. Trucks carrying reinforcements erupted into fireballs as UAVs slammed into their engines. Scattered infantry attempted to regroup, but the swarm saves followed relentlessly. Soldiers sprinted through smoke and rubble, only to be torn apart by explosions that tracked them like shadows. 07 a.m. The battlefield fell silent, except for the roar of flames. The once formidable base was gone. Intelligence analysts later estimated that over $1.2 billion in assets, from fuel reserves to missile stockpiles, had been obliterated in less than 40 minutes. Casualty counts were staggering. More than 1,400 soldiers killed or wounded, entire battalions erased. 09 a.m. The last UAV detonated against a communications relay, severing the base's final link to Pyongyang. At that same moment, the Ukrainian control team shut down their systems, dismantled antennas, and prepared for retreat. Within minutes, the operators vanished into the forest, carrying only laptops and encrypted drives. By dawn, they had melted back across the border, leaving no trace but a smoking ruin. The fury in Pyongyang was immediate. North Korean fighter jets scrambled at 5:22 a.m., scouring the skies for attackers, but the Ukrainians were already gone. The enemy had been struck, gutted, and humiliated. Yet no one could point to where the blow had come from. Ukraine had written a new chapter in modern warfare. Victory through invisibility. By the time the smoke cleared over Kyiv, the operation had already carved its place in history. In less than 40 minutes, Ukraine had dismantled one of North Korea's most fortified military complexes. What conventional armies would need weeks of artillery barrages and thousands of troops to accomplish was achieved with 100 improvised UAVs, $3 million in resources, and under 50 operators working from the shadows. The numbers spoke louder than any declaration. Over $1.22 billion in destroyed assets, missile stockpiles reduced to ash, fuel depots incinerated, and thousands of troops killed, wounded, or scattered in disarray. But beyond the destruction, it was the method that stunned military analysts worldwide. Mobility, deception, and speed had triumphed over entrenched firepower. Ukraine had not simply attacked. It had demonstrated that even the most closed, tightly controlled state could be pierced by ingenuity and audacity. For Pyongyang, the humiliation was profound. A base once considered untouchable was erased overnight. Its defenses blinded, its soldiers left powerless. For Kyiv, the message was clear. Technology and courage can level the battlefield against any foe, no matter how distant or formidable. The geopolitical shockwaves spread far beyond East Asia. Every defense ministry in the world began reconsidering its vulnerabilities, asking, what if we are next? This was not just an operation. It was a warning, a demonstration, and perhaps the opening move of a new kind of shadow war, one where the smallest machines can deliver the deadliest outcomes. If you found this analysis insightful and want to support more in-depth breakdowns like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never